Alright, so we're here with the LG Expo, which is the company's latest Windows Mobile smartphone for AT&T. This, of course, runs Windows Mobile 6.5. It's a landscape QWERTY slider with a fairly standard 4-row layout. This should make a lot of QWERTY purists happy because you have the numeric pad layout over here on the right, and not a lot of drama in terms of spacebar placement or anything like that, pretty standard. We found the keyboard pretty easy to use. The only complaint I would have is that for some reason, as far as I can tell, there isn't any remaining plastic on here. The device did ship with a lot of protective plastic on it and around it, but I think that's all gone, but it's still making sort of a plasticky sound when you hit some of the keys. Let's see if you can hear that. There you go. I don't know if you heard that at all, but yeah, it's definitely making some sound there, and that might be specific to this unit. I'm not sure, but that's really our only complaint. The keyboard itself feels quite good. Maybe the keys could be just a little bit more domed, but not a big deal. They're certainly wide enough, and I think that this would be a pretty easy layout to use. You have directional controls in the lower right, and as I said, the spacebar placement is totally standard, so you shouldn't run into any trouble there. The phone is fairly thick, but certainly not overly so. It'll definitely get a lot thicker if you add on the optional micro projector, which isn't yet available. I want to take off the battery cover here and show you how that attaches. So you see you have these 8 pins up here at the top of the battery. So the standard battery cover will go away, and when you add on that hump on the back to do the projection. Battery cover sounds like it's metal. Feels pretty good. Everything about the device feels pretty good. Feels like a very professional device. Let's see here. Let's put this back on. There we go. 5 megapixel autofocus camera with flash up top, LED. Around top you have a power and lock button, and unfortunately I have no idea why LG did this. They should know better than this by now, but they've gone with a proprietary connector or excuse me, it's not proprietary, it's just micro USB, but nonetheless it's not a 3.5mm jack for audio. So that's very strange on a device that's this high-end, a smartphone that's this high-end. They're obviously intending this to be strictly a business phone and not a media phone. You can tell from that alone. You have a lanyard attachment point here, and I'm going to show you what that's for in a second. On the side here you have volume controls, and then you have a camera button and a multi-function button that's reassignable here. All the buttons are reassignable actually, but this one over here on the right, micro SD slot. Wide VGA display. You have an optical sensor down below for navigation, and I'll show you that in a second as well. And then of course the standard controls down below, send, end, and back. Now, I mentioned this lanyard connection point. This is a little strange. So LG made the unusual move of not giving the Expo an internal stylus slot. And I can only assume, this is just a flat-out guess, but I can only assume that that's because they originally intended this device to launch with Windows Mobile 7, in which case it would be finger-only, I'm guessing. As some of you might recall, we saw this phone leaked about 6 months ago in an AT&T slide deck, and it was mentioned to be getting Windows Mobile 7. We can guess that since then 7 has probably slipped, and LG probably wanted to get the Expo out the door, so they dropped 6.5 on it, and in doing so they realized that they needed a stylus. So what they did was they included this thing, which, don't get me wrong, it looks nice, it's attractive, but failing to include an internal stylus on a Windows Mobile 6.5 professional device is pretty egregious when you consider that it's got a resistive touchscreen and everything, because there are definitely things on this phone where you're going to need to be using a stylus, believe me, in playing with it. We found that out the hard way. The cool thing about this stylus, though, I'll show you, it's kind of magical. I'll pull it apart here, if we can get it. Jeez, it's really stuck on there. There we go. So when it pulls off, you'll see that it sort of sticks here a little bit, and when you pull it, it'll eventually come off, but it lengthens the part that's underneath so that you end up with a pretty long stylus. and it's comfortable and easy to use, feels good in the hand. And then when you put this back on, you just push, and it locks back down into place and gets it pretty compact. So it's a pretty cool stylus, all things considered. It's just not the optimal solution considering how often you're probably going to need to use a stylus with this phone. So anyway, you got this this hoop here, and this can just attach to the lanyard if you want to do it that way. We've seen some Nokia ship that way in the past. So that's one option. Another option is to just carry it in your pocket and lose it after the first day. But so that's that. And then let's show you the device itself. We're going to go back out to the home screen here. So it's a very standard Windows Mobile 6.5 build. If some of you remember from the Pure, the HTC Pure that we looked at before, it looks basically the same. As I said, wide VGA resolution, resistive screen, so you're better off using your fingernail than the front of your finger. It gets a little not that accurate, let's just put it that way, if you use the front of your finger. So you want to be careful with that, and again, that's what the stylus is for. Another option is the optical pad down below. This is a tricky one though. We like how RIM has done these because they're sort of domed, and they have good feel. They're easy to slide your finger along. This one is recessed and surrounded by this protruding metal strip. So it feels funny when you're trying to use it. We finally practiced enough so that we're pretty good with using it. It's pretty accurate. We can pretty reliably scroll with it, but we're not sure that we'd want to. I personally would prefer to just use my finger 90% of the time, I think. And of course you can go, let's see, we'll find one that has a right, left. There we go. You can go right and left with this as well. So. But yeah, personally, that wouldn't be my navigation method of choice. So yeah, that's about all there is to see with this device. One other thing I'll show you though real quick. We go into the honeycomb menu here. The Expo does ship with LG's menu, which might look familiar depending on what LG devices you've used in the past. This is sort of an S-class standard. You can even see this on modern devices like the new chocolate, but I'm not sure why you'd want to use this necessarily. It's not a particularly attractive menu, but you have three-dimensional scrolling here, or excuse me, two-dimensional scrolling. So you have the rows up and down for different categories of applications and settings, and then within each row you can go right and left. So, but that's not standard. The standard home screen on this device is the 6.5 standard home screen, and the standard menu is Windows Mobile 6.5 standard honeycomb menu. So that's what you'll see when you first boot up the device. So that's just a very quick look at the LG Expo. Again, totally standard phone. There's not a lot to see if you're familiar with 6.5. This phone goes head-to-head with the Tilt 2, also known as the Touch Pro 2. And if I had to choose between the two, that's a tough one. I think that customers that are in the market for a Tilt 2 are well served to compare these phones side by side in the store because they definitely compete in the exact same market. This is a very business-friendly phone. It's not something that kids are necessarily going to want. It's not something that most consumers are going to want, if for no other reason than the fact that you don't have a 3.5mm jack up top. But yeah, it's still a very powerful device, and for Windows Mobile fans, this is sort of the pinnacle of the platform on AT&T right now. So definitely compare this with the Tilt 2 and see what you think.